to the Nepal Peace Pagoda here at South Bank Parklands, Brisbane, Australia. My name is John McGregor and I'm from Friends of the Pagoda and Foundation Expo 88, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here this morning on this beautiful Sunday morning. My role here is as a guide for the Pagoda, and with the 25th anniversary of World Expo 88 coming up next year in 2013, we want to re-engage with the Pagoda and with visitors to the Pagoda, not only the visitors that come to the Pagoda here in person, but also those who visit the Pagoda worldwide on the World Wide Web via YouTube. So that's what we're going to be doing with this video, and we're going to be uploading it to YouTube so that people all around the world can learn a bit about the Pagoda and its unique heritage and its role during World Expo 88. But first of all, a bit about World Expo 88 and how the Pagoda got here. In 1983, Brisbane won the right to host the 1988 World Exposition, and immediately the current Prime Minister of the time, Bob Hawke, sent out invitations through diplomatic channels to all nations of the world to come and participate in World Expo 88. And soon thereafter, the Kingdom of Nepal was one of the countries to agree to participate, and in 1986, the United Nations International Year of Peace, they commenced construction of this beautiful structure which we can see here to represent the Kingdom of Nepal at World Expo 88. It was 2 years of work, over 80 tonnes of indigenous Nepalese timbers from the southern jungle forests in Nepal, the Terai jungle forests, over 80 tonnes of timber, as I mentioned, which was then felled and brought to the capital Kathmandu, where 160 Nepalese families worked for 2 years to carve this beautiful structure. It was then put into two 40-foot containers and one 20-foot container and brought to Australia by a boat, and then was assembled not too far from here, just up towards South Bank Railway Station, near the southern gate of the Expo site for World Expo 88. And it was a very popular pavilion at the Expo. Many of the pavilions at the Expo, as you can imagine, were prefabricated and made out of steel and metal, but this was a pavilion which is lovingly hand-carved and talked of an ancient tradition, and it talked about leisure in the traditional sense as a cultural means of expression. And that's how it fit in with the theme of leisure in the age of technology, which was then broken down into three themes: leisure in the past, leisure in the present, and leisure in the future. So this fell into the theme of a traditional pastime, a cultural leisure pastime. And the Pagoda was one of the most popular pavilions at the Expo, not only because of its beautiful architecture, and you could also come here to the side pavilions and other parts of the forecourt here of the Pagoda, and you could see Nepalese craftsmen doing their work, but you could also visit the inside of the Pagoda as well, as you can today. And as you can see, the Pagoda has 3 levels. The first level was open to the public, and also the second level as well. And on the second level of the Pagoda, they hosted a traditional Nepalese tea house, where one could savour traditional Nepalese sweets and savouries, as well as traditional Nepalese teas as well. So this was a very popular place to escape from the thronging crowds of World Expo 88. Over 70,000 visitors came to visit the Pagoda during World Expo 88, and we had many heads of state and presidents as well. And one of the most famous visitors was without a doubt the late Sir Edmund Hillary, champion of Everest. And at that time I was working for a guide for the Japan Pavilion at World Expo 88, and as it should turn out, I had the unique pleasure of being able to personally guide Sir Edmund Hillary when he visited the Japan Pavilion, and when he's visited the Nepal Peace Pagoda here at Expo 88, he had a very warm welcome, and it's evident from his entry in the guest book that he very much enjoyed his visit to the Nepal Peace Pagoda, and that it brought him back many memories of Nepal. At the end of the Expo, however, it's the responsibility of the participant to disassemble their pavilion. And the Nepalese government didn't want to do this, but instead put the Pagoda on the international market for sale, so that it could go to the highest bidder. And immediately a group of people was put together to create a Save the Pagoda Committee Fund, which was chaired by Councillor David Hinchliffe of Brisbane City Council, who was then the Deputy Lord Mayor. And immediately government and private funds were collected to keep the Pagoda here in Brisbane as a permanent memento of World Expo 88. But there did have to be a public interest test. A significant proportion of the funds did have to be raised from money from the general public to prove that it was in the public interest to keep the Pagoda here in Brisbane. So monies were collected from the Australian Government, Queensland Government, Brisbane City Council, also from the Expo 88 Authority, and also from the general public as well. However, when it came to the last day, there was a $30,000 shortfall, and it was put out in the mass media to this fact that sadly the Save the Pagoda Committee Fund had been very successful but not successful enough, and there happened to be a retired couple in Holland Park who viewed the story on the TV and then decided to forego their $30,000 trip to South America and decided to put their $30,000 towards keeping the pagoda. So that was Mr. and Mrs. Frank and Mara Pitt, and I know Mr. and Mrs. Frank and Mara Pitt quite well, and they are popularly known as the couple that saved the pagoda, and for that reason Mr. Pitt quite funnily calls the pagoda Pitt's Pagoda. So that's how the pagoda was saved for the city of Brisbane. And when Southbank Parklands was opened in 1992, the pagoda was disassembled and reassembled here on this side facing the Brisbane River. And this is where it's been since that day, and this is where hopefully it will be for all eternity. The pagoda is in fact dedicated to 1,000 years of world peace, so we at least hope that it'll be here for the next 1,000 years and more. So let's talk a bit more about the pagoda itself. Now the pagoda, as you can see, has 3 levels. And at the moment, the public can only enter the first level. The second level, which we hope to have as a World Expo 88 museum in the future, is presently not open to the public. But the reason why, let me talk to you a bit about why they are called Peace Pagodas. Now, the Nepal Peace Pagodas are called Peace Pagodas for a reason. It's because they celebrate the peaceful coexistence of Hinduism and Buddhism in Nepal. Hey. Now, as you may know, in Nepal, both Hinduism and Buddhism are practiced, and these two religions coexist side by side in peace. So through their Nepal Peace Pagodas, you'll find symbolism from both religions communicated through the artwork of the pagoda. And if you look at the pagoda in the central area, you might be able to see above the central archway, there is a Buddha in meditation. This tells us that we're entering a Buddhist place of worship. And directly underneath the Buddha in meditation, we have a makra. We have directly to the left and right of the Buddha in meditation, we have 2 makras, which are water dragons. And you can see water gushing out of their mouths, and this is because they protect the pagoda against the harmful elements of the rain. But directly underneath the Buddha in meditation, we can see 3 curves, a semicircle and a dot. And this is the symbol for Om, or the Hindu concept of the universe. Now, Om is a very powerful concept to the Hindus. They do not believe in a demarcation between the creator and the creation. They view the creator and the creation as one single entity, and that is their concept of the universe. So 2 very important symbols we can see here. First of all, the Buddha in meditation, and directly underneath that Om, the Hindu concept of the universe, which tells us that we're entering a Hindu place of worship as well. So these 2 religions coexist side by side, as you can see here by the religious artwork symbolism. And we'll go back to the Buddha again, and above the Buddha we find a creature called Chepu, and Chepu is a Garuda. Now Chepu is a guardian of the universe, and he does this in several ways. But first of all, you see with Chepu there seems to be clouds coming out of the left and right of his mouth, and this is because they're actually air particles, because he gives life to the universe as he breathes. So he gives life to the universe, but he also has another important role, in that he is the keeper of good in the universe. And how does he do this? He does this through destroying evil. And how does he destroy evil? He does this through eating these serpents, which you can see at the left and right of his mouth. And these serpents are known as Nagas. Now the Nagas in Thai Buddhism are a benevolent force, which bring good luck. But in the Nepalese Buddhist context, the Nagas are malevolent and they're evil. And so Chepu maintains order in the universe through eating the evil serpents, the Nagas, and through, in other words, through eating evil. And to the left and right of the Buddha, we find 2 dragons, 2 sets of dragons, and then to the very left and right as well, again, we find a sun here on the left, and a sun and a sun here on the right. This refers to the emblems of Nepal and tells us that the work has come from Nepal. The actual the sun here on the right also has a semi-crescent moon at its base. So you also find these two symbols, as I mentioned to you, on the state flag of Nepal as well. And as we go on to the second and third levels of the pagoda, you can see on the second level of the pagoda there are 6 struts per side, and on the third level of the pagoda there are 4 struts per side. Now, with the second level support struts, these are all Hindu gods and deities. And I should talk to you a bit about Hinduism now. And Hinduism has some 300 million gods, but they do have a Hindu trinity. And that Hindu trinity is Shiva, Brahman and Vishnu. Now Shiva is the most powerful of the three because he's known as the destructor. But he's known as the destructor in a positive sense because he destroys evil and creates in its place a better entity, a good entity. And Shiva can be manifested on the earth in many different ways, as a male, as a female, or as an animal. And one of his most popular or well-known manifestations is as Nataraja, goddess of the dance. And Nataraja can be seen here at the pagoda in the support strat on the second level, the third support strat on the left. And Nataraja is a Hindu word, Nata meaning dance and Raja meaning god, or goddess. So, and you will find, if you do a Google search on Nataraja, you'll find many images of Nataraja. And Nataraja, as I said, she is doing a special dance, and she's doing the dance of the creative energies of the universe. So she's in fact creating the universe as she dances. And we could go on and on about each of the different manifestations of Shiva here, but that is the main one, and that's all we have time to talk about today. And on the third level of the pagoda, which you can't really see here, you have more Buddhist deities carved into the artwork on the third level. And also on the bottom part of each of those support struts, of those 4 support struts per side, we also find the Kama Sutra here as well. And that concludes this part of the pagoda tour. We will now move on to the Peace Bell, where I'll talk to you about the 8 auspicious symbols of Buddhism. Thank you, and I'll be joining you again in a second.